something that was around in 1985, but not many people actually got hold of one, even though they'd probably heard of one. And I think a lot of people would have liked one of these modules if it existed in the UK. It did in Germany, and it did in a lot of parts of Europe. And what this module was something called a Hypra tape. And what it did, it was meant to speed up your access time from cassette tape programs from your Commodore 64. So what would happen is that your Commodore 64 would suddenly have a cassette tape that was as fast as a standard disk drive. Now, the disk drives on the Commodore 64 were notoriously slow anyway, so having something that was as fast as something that was very slow probably doesn't seem like a good idea. But when you're talking about loading games on a 64K machine that could take 10 minutes or so to actually install into the machine, any kind of time-saving mechanism that you could put out was quite a good thing. But it was kind of mythical. I hadn't actually seen one in the flesh, so to speak, and they were almost impossible to come by. So I've managed to get hold of one, and I've been spending most of the day with it, just trying to figure out if it actually worked, or was it just, you know, another medicine man piece of hardware that promised the earth and didn't actually do anything. Okay, so today we're going to look at the Rex Dayton Technic Hypra tape module. It's a German built module for the Commodore 64, and it's meant to speed up cassette input to the machine, and it claims to do it at about the same speed as a standard Commodore disk drive. It seems a little bit like Mr. Medicine Man trying to sell his wares, but you know, we'll give it the benefit of the doubt and we'll have a bit of a look at it. Okay, so let's see what it can do. Okay, so as you can see, we've got the Hypra tape module running. It's listed as speed tape and it's copyright 1985. Now to activate it, you got to enter this POKE, which is 793,207. That loads the system or the software into very high memory resident area of the Commodore 64, which isn't used by BASIC. Once you've entered this POKE and press Run Stop Restore, you get a blank ready screen, and it should be ready to load your cassette. The next instruction is your normal load command, but the "6". So the "6" is what activates the fast mode on the cassette recorder. Okay, and we're going to use the Commodore 64 Codemasters Arcade Flight as a test. Okay, so this is going to be our test cassette, first with a fast mode, see if it makes any difference, and then with slow, normal Commodore 64 mode. Okay, we're just going to press play and then get it started. So I'll let you know at the end of it. You don't want to watch this for the next however minutes, so I'll let you know how long it took at the end of it. And this is now going to be round 2 with a standard machine. So the Hypra tape module 2, it can speed up your loading times by 10 times, but only if you save it with the module first. It's supposed to be as fast as a standard floppy drive on a Commodore 60. Don't know if this is actually 100% accurate, to be honest, because with most software having fast loaders, I think this one's a little bit inaccurate, I would say, because what I've found is it's not actually making a lot of difference. It seems to skip the pauses, but very little else. Now, out of just blind curiosity, I figured that if it's relying on data stream, because it is a digital system on the Commodore, the tape deck is digital, then why not use one of these, and let's find out if it makes any difference. So I'm going to use the same command set. Okay, and we're just going to try out, so it's going to do exactly the same, and I'm just going to pop down play. And now immediately it's gone into some kind of fast tape loader, which is odd. So I'm just going to let it run, and then I'll come back to it, and then we'll see how it does. Okay. And basically it whips through the file really quickly, but it crashes and it doesn't do a lot of good. And that's what I found with the cassettes as well. If you manage to get one to load up, it was, or seemed to be, quicker, but only because I think it cut out the gaps. But then most of the time it will just crash with a blank screen. And the best part of it is the reset button, because it actually does reset the Commodore 64, which was something that was kind of lacking on the original unit. I know you had the on-off switch, but a reset switch is handy. So if I just do the normal run, press play, without using the fast loader system, I'm guessing Monty on the Run will just run as normal. It is a lot slower. Yeah, as you can see, it's a lot slower, and it ticks along a lot slower on the simulated or the emulated cassette drive. But it loads up normally. What can you say? As much as I wanted it to work, and as much as I wanted it to be this magical piece of hardware that made cassette tapes genuinely quick and genuinely useful, it didn't. I mean, it says it was compatible apparently with fast loaders, and is meant to be compatible with every different loader that's out there, but you can't change the speed that the cassette motor is turning out. You can't change the audio pitch that the cassette is putting through to the Commodore 64, even though it's a digital signal on these machines. And that's the biggest thing. They were kind of mismarketed, because at the end of the day, the only time they would speed up tape access is when you load and save, or rather when you saved your own work and then reloaded it. That's the only time it seemed to do anything. Commercial products, not a thing. Most of the time they crashed, most of the time they didn't work, and when they did work, it was hit and miss. It was unusual when it did work from a commercial standpoint. So the only good thing about it was the fact that it had a reset, which the reset on a Commodore 64 is quite handy, but it's built into the machine, built into the cartridge rather. So if you were heavily into writing your own software on the Commodore 64 and you wanted to save stuff periodically and then bring it back in, or if you write in a database that you had to rely on cassette tape for some reason instead of a disk drive, then I could see it being a bit of an advantage. But as a general piece of hardware that was marketed to speed up tape access, I kind of think it was a little bit, as I said at the start, medicine man, because it didn't actually do that. At best, what it did was not do the pauses on the cassette. So you'd probably save about maybe 30 seconds on a 5 or 6 minute loading time. But in my experience using it, it didn't do a lot, and it only worked with software that you actually saved from the PC or from the Commodore 64 itself. Is it worth buying? Yes, is a piece of equipment that could be a talking point. Is it worth actually buying for something that could be genuinely useful today? No, I don't even think it was ever genuinely useful when it was brought out. So it's a period piece, but I wouldn't go looking for one unless it kind of fell into your hands quite cheaply and you just wanted to put it to one side or use it as a reset button on your Commodore 64, which is a shame because it was something when they were out that a lot of people wanted, and I'm kind of glad in a way that the UK may have escaped this piece of hardware because it would have disappointed a lot of people. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed watching this, and if you like what you've seen, subscribe. If you don't, then have a great day, and I hope we'll meet each other on this channel again in the future. And I hope that we find some more obscure pieces of hardware along the way. Okay, so thanks again for watching.